All right, welcome in, everyone. We're diving deep today into a book that really flips the script on how we think about suffering.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Nguyen.
Catchy title.
It is, right. And we're focusing on the first 17 chapters where Nguyen argues that it's not actually external events that cause us to suffer, but our own thinking.
Hmm.
Interesting.
And to unpack all of this, we've got our expert here who, as always, loves to get into the nitty-gritty of these mind-bending ideas.
Well, you got to love the details, right? That's where the good stuff is.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. Nguyen starts with his personal story, how he tried everything: therapy, meditation.
The whole shebang.
Yeah, but still felt trapped in this cycle of anxiety.
You know, it's so relatable, that feeling of doing all the right things, but still not finding relief.
Absolutely. And I think that's why this book is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. It speaks to that universal human desire to free ourselves from suffering.
Right. And Nguyen just cuts to the chase. He says flat out, thinking is the root cause of suffering. Whoa, that's a bold statement.
It is. But then he gives this example, two people sitting in a coffee shop.
Okay.
One's having a total meltdown, the other's completely chill.
Same environment, different internal experience.
Exactly. It all comes down to their thinking.
I like that. So simple, but makes you think.
Right. And then he tells this Zen story about a young monk trying to meditate, but keeps getting distracted by these noises.
Those pesky distractions.
And it's driving him crazy, right? But then he realizes it's not the noises themselves, but his reaction.
The attachment to the silence.
Yes. It's his thinking that's causing this suffering, not the external situation.
It's like that old saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
So true. And this is where Nguyen dives into the difference between thoughts and thinking.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Thoughts are like those fleeting mental blips. We all have them, right?
Yeah, like pop-ups on your computer.
But thinking is dwelling on those thoughts, getting caught up in the stories.
Like clicking on the pop-up and going down a rabbit hole.
Yes. And that's what really amplifies our suffering.
It's like thoughts are neutral on their own, but thinking adds all this judgment and emotion, right?
Exactly. So then the question is, well, if it's all about thinking...
Shouldn't we just try to think positive all the time?
Right. Isn't that the key to happiness? I mean, we hear that everywhere.
Oh, yeah, but Nguyen challenges that big time.
Oh, really?
He says, actually, our natural state is already joy, love, peace. It's thinking that disrupts it.
So it's not about forcing positivity, but removing the blocks.
Exactly. Think about it. When you felt pure joy, were you consciously thinking, be happy?
Not really. I was just present in the moment.
Right. That's that natural state.
I'm starting to get this. But how do we access that?
Well, Nguyen introduces these 3 principles.
Okay, this is where I started to get a little lost.
Yeah, it can be a bit abstract.
It is. So can you break it down for us?
Absolutely. So imagine universal mind like a vast ocean of potential. It's the source of everything.
Okay, like pure creative energy.
Right. Now, your consciousness, that's like a surfboard riding the waves of this ocean.
I like that. So our thoughts are the waves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we get to choose which waves we ride.
So we're not at the mercy of every thought that comes along. We have some agency here.
That's the key takeaway. We have more power than we realize to shape our experience. It's funny, one of the first hurdles people trip over on this journey is actually the feeling of peace itself.
Wait, really? Peace is a problem?
Yeah, because we're so used to that mental chaos.
Oh, the constant chatter.
Right. So when the mind quiets down.
It feels wrong, almost.
Yeah, like we should be doing something, thinking about something.
We're forgetting something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So having those goals aligned with inspiration, not just desperation, can help.
So you're not just floating around, you've got direction, but it feels good.
Yeah, you're channeling that freed up energy.
Makes sense. So practically speaking, what do we do when those negative thoughts just won't quit?
The sticky ones. Nguyen's got this 3-step framework.
Give it to me.
First, remember, thinking is the root cause, right?
Yeah.
Not the event itself.
Okay, got it.
Second, create space for those thoughts. Don't resist them.
Let them in, but don't offer them tea.
Exactly. And third, allow them to pass, like clouds.
Don't get snag.
You got it. It's a practice, not perfection.
Okay, so we've got the guide to stop thinking, this framework for dealing with thoughts. What else helps?
Well, it's not just internal. Nguyen talks about creating a non-thinking environment.
Oh, like your surroundings matter too.
Huge. It's about removing those thinking triggers.
What are those? Like things that set you off?
Exactly. Could be certain foods, too much screen time, even clutter.
Wow, I never thought about it that way.
Once you're aware, you can swap them out.
For things that uplift you.
Yes. Healthy food, inspiring books, nature.
Just like decluttering your mind, right?
I love that analogy. And then on the flip side, you add things that activate that non-thinking state.
Okay, so two sides of the coin.
He calls it an activation ritual, like a morning routine designed for peace.
Sounds good. What's involved?
Starting your day without those triggers.
No phone first thing. Ugh, that's hard.
It is. But imagine starting with peace, not stress.
I like that. Sets the tone for the whole day.
Right. Now, all this sounds great for personal life.
But work, that's a whole other beast.
Tell me about it. But Nguyen tackles that too. He says, start by figuring out what drains you at work.
Okay, an energy audit.
Yep. List out tasks, rate them, draining to inspiring,
So you can see where your energy's going.
and then make conscious choices. Shift towards what lights you up.
Not quitting, but redesigning your work life.
That's it. You have more power than you think.
But what about those habits? The ones that just seem to stick around.
Oh, we all have them. Ninian's got us covered there too.
Oh, good.
He says, start by understanding the habit, the why behind it.
The root cause.
Yes.
Yeah.
What need is it trying to meet?
So self-awareness first, not just willpower.
Right. He even has questions to help you dig deep.
So it's like being kind to yourself, understanding where it comes from.
Exactly. Then you can make different choices, aligned with who you want to be.
Rewriting the old code.
Love that. And it's not about being perfect. You'll have slip-ups.
It's a process.
Right. Now, here's the thing. How do you even know if you're in a state of non-thinking?
Yeah, good point. What are the signs?
Well, Nguyen says you'll feel peace, love, joy, deep connection.
Okay, that sounds nice.
You lose track of time, immersed in the moment.
Like that flow state, everything clicks.
Exactly. More creativity, productivity, everything just flows.
Sounds amazing, but also a little intimidating. What if you can't maintain it?
It's a journey, not a destination. You'll fall back into old patterns.
Just natural.
Exactly. Just notice it. Be kind to yourself and come back to the present.
So it's okay to not be perfect at this.
More than okay. It's about remembering you always have the power to choose peace.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The guides, environment, work, habits. But there's one more piece I'm curious about. Intuition, that inner knowing. How do we tap into that?
Intuition, such a powerful force. It's often that gut feeling, that deep knowing.
That little voice that says, go this way, even when your mind is freaking out.
Exactly. Nguyen says it's more reliable than our thinking.
Because thinking's clouded by fear, past stuff, right?
Yes. So it's learning to trust that inner compass.
Even when it's leading you off the map.
Precisely. And, it's a muscle you got to practice.
So how do you tell if it's really intuition, not just a random thought?
Good question. The feeling's different. Intuition brings peace, even if the action is scary.
Like, this feels right, even if you can't explain why.
Exactly. And don't worry. It gets easier the more you do it.
Like anything, practice makes perfect, or at least less imperfect.
Right. And when you tap into that intuition, you open up to all sorts of possibilities.
Synchronicities, serendipity, like magic almost.
It is a bit magical, right? It's like this wisdom is always there. We just got to tune in.
So why don't more people do it if it's so good?
Nguyen says it's fear of the unknown, a failure of judgment.
Makes sense. It takes courage to trust that inner voice.
It does, especially when it's leading you somewhere new.
Outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, and that's where the real growth happens.
It's almost like you have to choose to trust yourself.
And that's what this whole journey's about, isn't it? Self-trust.
It all comes back to that, yeah. Now, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but you mentioned the present moment earlier.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
Nguyen talks about how thinking pulls us out of the now, into the past or future.
And in those moments, we miss out on the peace that's available right here.
It's like that quote, yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a gift. That's why it's called the present.
Love that. And it's so simple. Just bring your attention to this moment.
The breath, the sensations.
Exactly. And watch how that peace just expands.
It's like training your mind to come home to the present.
A beautiful way to put it. And when you do that, your whole perception shifts.
Problems feel smaller, relationships feel better.
Life just flows,
And it's like you're tapping into a different reality.
You're tapping into the reality of peace.
Which brings us back to that teacup analogy.
Oh, yeah, the overflowing teacup.
Reminds me of how we try to force things, control everything, when what we need is emptiness.
To receive, to allow.
So it's not about more, but less.
And that's where those practices come in. Meditation, nature, things that bring you joy.
Creating that fertile ground for inspiration.
Exactly. And remember, Edison, Einstein, they knew how to create space.
Napping with steel balls, playing the violin, unconventional but effective.
It's not always about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about letting go.
Okay, so much to think about. Now I know we're getting to the end of our time, but I gotta ask,
What's on your mind?
what about those obstacles? We taste freedom, but the old habits are strong.
Oh yeah, that's real. It's like a dance between the old and the new.
So how do we break free for good?
Nguyen says, it's not just willpower, it's about understanding the habit.
Getting to the root, rewriting the story.
Exactly. And being kind to yourself along the way.
No judgment, just awareness and choice.
That's the essence of it.
Okay, so we've covered so much ground: the nature of suffering, the three principles, intuition, environment, habits. I feel like my mind is full, but in a good way.
It's a lot to digest, but it's all pointing to that same truth.
Which is,
We are not our thoughts. We are the awareness behind the thoughts, and that awareness has the power to choose peace.
so powerful. And it makes me think it's not about becoming a different person, but remembering who we truly are.
Exactly. We're already whole and complete.
We just got to peel back those layers of thinking.
And remember, there's help along the way. Ningin's got that guide to stop thinking.
Oh, yeah. And those frameworks for environment and work.
He really gives you the tools to put this into practice.
Incredible. And I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to trust.
Trust in yourself, trust in the process.
That we have everything we need already within us.
That's the beautiful truth.
So before we wrap up this final part of our deep dive, any last words of wisdom?
Just this. Don't believe everything you think. Question your thoughts. Challenge your beliefs. And remember, you have the power to choose peace.
Mic drop moment right there. And on that note, I want to thank you, our brilliant expert speaker.
Always a pleasure.
And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on this journey. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, and you have the power to create a life of peace, joy, and limitless possibility. Until next time, keep diving deep.
All right, welcome back, everyone, for the final stretch of our deep dive into Don't Believe Everything You Think.
It's been quite a journey so far.
It has, and we're not done yet. There are a few more things Nguyen brings up that I think are super relevant.
Oh, absolutely. Like that whole concept of unconditional creation.
Yes, he talks about how we get so fixated on specific outcomes.
Like we're trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. And it just creates so much tension, right? He says, instead, focus on the process, like a kid playing.
Just pure enjoyment, no pressure for results. Right. And when I think about times I felt most creative, it's been like that.
Totally. Lost in the flow, not worried about the end product.
And that's when the magic happens, the ideas just flow.
And that's where intuition can really shine, guiding you toward those unexpected opportunities.
It's like surrendering to something bigger, trusting the universe has your back.
Which can be hard for some people.
Yeah, surrender can sound scary, like giving up control.
But it's not about passivity. It's about aligning with a greater force.
So tapping into that universal flow instead of trying to control every little thing.
Exactly. And it takes trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process.
And speaking of trust, Nguyen talks a lot about trusting our intuition.
That inner knowing, that gut feeling that's often right even when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but how do you cultivate that trust when it's so subtle?
It's a practice like anything else. The more you pay attention to those nudges, the stronger it gets.
So noticing those intuitive hits, and then what?
Having the courage to act on them, even if it feels scary or unconventional?
It's about taking those leaps of faith.
Yes. And that's where the real growth happens.
Stepping outside that comfort zone into the unknown.
Exactly. Now, I know we've talked about it before, but it all comes back to that teacup analogy.
Oh, you mean the one about it overflowing?
Yeah, how we try to cram more and more into our lives when what we really need is emptiness.
To create space for something new to emerge.
Exactly. It's like decluttering your mind, creating that fertile ground for creativity.
And it's not just a metaphor. Remember Edison, Einstein, they understood this.
Napping with steel balls, playing the violin, finding ways to quiet the mind.
It's not always about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about letting go.
And letting those aha moments come through.
Okay, so much to think about. And as we wrap up our deep dive into Don't Believe Everything You Think, I'm struck by how hopeful it all is.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly empowering.
It's like we have the power to choose peace, choose joy.
In every moment, regardless of our circumstances.
And it starts with becoming aware of our thoughts, realizing they're not the truth, they're just thoughts.
And we get to choose which ones we believe.
It's about reclaiming our power as conscious creators.
And as we do that, we not only transform our own lives, but we contribute to a more peaceful world.
Love that. So as we close out this episode, any final words of wisdom?
Don't believe everything you think, question your thoughts, challenge your beliefs, and remember, you have the power to choose peace.
Beautiful. And on that note, a huge thank you to you, our expert, for sharing your insights.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness behind them, and you have the power to create a life of peace, joy, and limitless possibility. Until next time, keep diving deep.
Thanks for listening. Did you enjoy what you heard? Want to buy this book? Please use the link in the description to support the channel.